And we are live. G'day everyone, and welcome to the first episode of my podcast. It's been a long time in the making. This has been something that I've been wanting to do for quite a long time now, although you probably wouldn't know that. However, that is part of the reason why I'm really wanting to make this, because I feel as if it's been a big journey for me in trying to be more open and trying to let more people into the things that I'm doing with my own life and my business. So without further ado, here we go. And for those who don't know me, of which I'm sure there probably aren't very many of you out there listening to this first episode if you don't know who I am. But if you don't, my name is Mike Jeffrey, and you are listening to my creative journey. First off, I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone who's listening. Obviously, it is a big commitment to listen to a podcast, let alone listen to one that you haven't listened to before. I think it is a big step and a big time commitment as well, because there are a lot of podcasts out there and it's very hard to sort of start on a new one. I know myself, I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and it's always the most challenging listening to those first few episodes to make sure whether it is one that you are wanting to listen to long term, or whether it is just something and then you find out that it's not very interesting for you and it's not your style. So I know that the first one can be very challenging, and even more challenging to that, the first episode of any new podcast always, I feel, is a bit below par of the standard that you're used to. Me, having listened to a lot of podcasts that are going to be way more overproduced than this one, will definitely make mine sound a lot underproduced. But that's okay. We got to start somewhere, and I'm glad you guys are all here. It really means the world to me that you are. So I wanted to start off by talking about why I wanted to make this podcast. And as I said in the beginning, it's something that I've been wanting to do for quite a long time now, although never something that I've actively been trying to push towards. It's been something that's been in the back of my mind, but never something that I've actually tried to start before. I, as I said, listen to a lot of podcasts, and I've always thought that they were such a great way of communicating to an audience, although I never saw it as being something that was very viable long term. Podcasting always seemed to me to be something that would take up a lot of time commitment for me to record and produce, and in that way, I thought the reward out of that wouldn't be as great as I wanted it to be. So I've always pursued other avenues of creativity in that sense, and other avenues of trying to document my journey before coming to podcasting, because I always thought that this would be something that would take up more time. Over the past couple of years, I think I've found that other avenues are just as time consuming and don't always produce the same rewards for me, whether that's a reward that is my own personal goals, I guess, and the things that I want to achieve and things that bring me happiness, but also my own financial goals and goals in trying to drive my business forward in that way as well. So I think having come at it from those different angles and having tried other things in the past, I think this is where we've come and we've landed on podcasting. It's interesting, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a while back, and they were asking about something that I've always wanted to do. And I always get asked this question. I feel like it's something that people always ask: if you could do anything, what would you do if you didn't have any fears around starting something that is outside of your area? And I've always come to it and said, well, there's not very many things that I really am aspiring to do that I'm not already trying to pursue, because in my own life, I've always been that type to try to do things that interest me and only drive towards those things. As anyone who knows me, you'll know that I'm a photographer, and that is something that I've been trying to go towards for the past few years now, and something that I've been working really hard at trying to become, because that has always been a passion and a drive for me to get there. And so when people ask, is there anything that I would like to do? Well, I'd like to be a photographer, and that's what I'm trying to work towards. So it's hard to answer that question. So when they asked one thing that I wanted to do that I've never actually done before, or that I could do if I had ample amount of time, I said I wanted to be a radio host. And for me, it was never really something that I really thought about before, but it just popped into my mind because I've always thought of it as being something that has been interesting in a way. I feel like the art of just talking on air, but not really having anyone there, and just having that audio medium, I guess, has always interested me. Being someone who comes from a very visual medium background in photography, having that audio, I think, was always something that interested me. But also just being able to sit down and communicate to an audience over a longer period of time, I thought was always something that struck me as being very, very powerful in a way, because you could make those longer connections with an audience over a greater period of time. For me, sitting down and talking straight to a microphone when there's no one else in the room or few other people here, and just hearing it myself, I think, has always been one of the stronger ways for me to communicate. And I think that is why it popped in my head. And then a few months down the track, I thought about it again, and this is where it came up to becoming a podcast, because I thought, well, why not? I've always wanted to find a medium that I could sort of document the journey that I'm on in my own career and my own journey as a photographer. Having recently started my own business last year in photography, having come from a completely different field before that, and I've always been wanting to document it. As I said, I've tried other mediums before, tried to make videos on YouTube, and it was never sort of something for me. I thought that would be easier, but the act of making the video itself sort of was standing in the way of the end product. So I was hoping at the start of last year actually to try and make a lot more videos on YouTube, and trying to have that something that would be out there in the world for me to then look back on in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years time to see where I was at that point in my journey. But I never actually made the videos because there was too much of a hurdle standing in the way of those. And it really hit me, I think, at the end of last year when I thought, well, at least with a podcast, it's almost like sitting down and writing a journal. Journaling's never been something that I've actively sought out. I've tried journaling before, but I don't like to sit down with a pen and paper and have to write down my thoughts at the end of every day or the end of every week. It's not really something I enjoy to do. Having it as a podcast, I think, can be something that's more interesting for me. And it's more sort of just me explain everything that I've been up to in the week on the podcast, rather than having to get out a pen and have to write it down. And also easier for me to then look back on, because I think I'm not a very person who loves to go back and read the things that I have written. As I said, I've journaled before and I've never gone back and read any of those things. It's good to get them out on paper, but equally as good and equally as beneficial for me and my own growth to go back and read those things and see where I've come from. And I feel like having this in a form of a podcast would encourage me in a way to go back and listen to them, but also give me something that I can see a progression with. And in that way, I think it will be good. So I got to the end of last year and I put it down as one of my goals for this year. I said that I would love to start a podcast in 2021. I said I'd love to record an episode every week of 2021. I didn't get to one last week, so we're going to try and start now. Been on the end of a little bit of an extended holiday over the Christmas period, but hoping to get one going for the rest of the year. And it is going to be a little bit of a journal for me, I guess, in a way, of where I am with my business. But I equally think that is going to be helpful for a fair few people out there who are trying to start businesses, who are in positions like me, who are in other areas of any sort of creative field, trying to start out a business and trying to start their own creative journey, and hearing where I am. I know personally, I only say that because I like to listen to a lot of podcasts of people who are around the same experience as I am, or people who have done more, or even look back on podcasts of people who are successful in some sort of field, and listen to their earlier episodes to see where they came from. And I think I find that very helpful in my own head to know that it is possible and it is something that I can push towards. And I always think it's great to hear other people's journeys, and especially when it comes from them firsthand in the moment, I think is great. It's really good to be able to tell a story at the end of the journey, having a look back and being able to tell that story. But I think just as good, if not better, is being able to tell that story while you're in the story, and being that main character in your own story and being able to see it evolve and change from week to week, I think is just as good. Obviously, the whole episode is not going to be just things that I've been up to for the whole week. I wouldn't make anyone sit through that. It probably wouldn't be a very interesting episode. I don't do a lot week to week, but I'm definitely going to dedicate a bit of time at the start or the end of each episode to put that stuff in there. I think, as I said, it's going to be beneficial for a lot of people, but also for myself looking back. And I don't want to have that reasoning hidden away that at the end of the day, this podcast is for me, but I think it can help other people as well. And so that's why I'm having it out there. The rest, I think the aim of the episodes, I'm going to try and hope to explore different things. I'm someone who likes to listen to podcasts for education more than for entertainment. I think those are the two different avenues you can go down, either having an entertaining podcast or an educational podcast. And I'd like to say this is going to stray more into the educational realm. Although I do hope for it to be entertaining as well, I want it to be educational. I'm someone who likes to research a lot of things through the week and expand my business. And I think some of those things that I do learn, I think some of those things are very helpful for other people as well. So I may as well share them on here and hope that some of the episodes will really engage people and really help people out on their journey as well. As I said, this is not for just people who are photographers or who are wanting to be photographers. This is for any type of artist, anyone wanting to run their own business, and things that I've done in the past, but also things that I will do in the future to try and expand that business and that goal, and my own creativity in that way. So I'm going to be sharing little bits and pieces that I've picked up along the way and that I am picking up as I go, and educating myself, always moving forward in the episode. So hopefully each week we'll try to get something in there to make each episode worth your while, and something that I've learnt through the week, but also recapping things that I've done through the week and things that have worked for me, things that haven't worked, and bits like that. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, guys, I would love to have you along. Hopefully this can grow from here. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today in this first episode is, who am I? I think it's an interesting question and not something that a lot of people would know a great deal about. So as I said before, I am a photographer, but I haven't always been a photographer. My life, for me, has been very up and down. I feel like I've changed a lot in the past 5 years, and that is reflected through the things that I've tried to pursue in my life and the journeys that I've tried to take, with photography being just the most recent one that I'm on. So previously, I'm currently 23 years of age, and I started my photography business last year, but I want to take you guys back a few more years than that and see the progression that I have come on, and show you guys where I've come to today and where I'm trying to head to in the future. So I ended high school about 5 years ago. I think now, God, that's a bit hard to say. 5 years ago makes me feel old, but really in the context of things. And I went straight to university. So I did 4 years of university straight out of high school. I went to study physics at university. So I was basically a scientist, you might say. And then I got about halfway through the degree, and I really felt like it just wasn't for me. As much as I enjoyed and was interested in the craft, interested in the area of expertise, I just wasn't feeling fulfilled in my life and just couldn't see where I was headed to. As much as it's a great career, and as much as being a scientist in any aspect is a very rewarding career, I just didn't see where I was headed. I just didn't know where the direct path would take me next. And it really came to me that it was definitely something that I was interested in, but it wasn't something that was fulfilling me internally. And I think that was really where I had to draw the line, was that it wasn't something that I was enjoying as much as it interested me. And I think that was where I was being confused before. I was confused by the fact that I was really interested in a specific subject, but I wasn't enjoying the act of studying it, I guess, in a way. And the act of doing that as a job just didn't seem like something that I would love to go down. So for the next few years, I guess, I sort of tried to explore different avenues. And most of those avenues came in the artistic field. I knew that I didn't want to change a degree at university. I didn't want to go back and study something else because I just wasn't 100% on anything, and I didn't want to put that sort of time commitment into going and changing a career or changing something that I was studying and have myself locked into another 4 years of something else that I just thought was interesting on an afternoon and changed into that degree. So I didn't want to do that until I was 100% ready. I knew that if I wanted to, I could go back at any other stage of my life and go and do something else at university if that was really what I wanted to do. But at the time, I was 20 years old, I think, about 2021, and just thinking about what I wanted to do. And I thought I just had so much time that if I wanted to go away from it, I could come back later. I couldn't let that hold me back because I felt like an artistic career had to be started early. Whatever reason that was, I don't know, but I think that it was important for me to start that now, and if I didn't like it, I could always change back later on. I didn't want to get 10 years into my career and work out that I didn't want to be in that academic career, and then think I want to go do something artistic later on because I thought it would be so much harder later. So why not just start now? I started out wanting to be a music producer, actually, something that had always interested me. But again, something that I thought was, I suppose, interesting in a way that I didn't really know how it was done. I didn't know how it could be done as a career. And that sort of excited me to see that there was so much evolution in that career over the past 5 to 10 years that I was seeing a lot more people in the industry. I was seeing a lot more people enjoying themselves in that sort of artistic field. And I wanted to sort of be able to give it a go because it was something that I thought I could do just on my own, something that I could teach myself. And for a while there, I thought it was, something that I definitely could sustain myself in. However, after a while, I just sort of, as with other things that I've tried before, just started to lose interest. And I knew from then that it really wasn't for me. I started then to turn to photography, I think, sort of at the end of that period. Picked up a camera and was just trying to do it as something on the side. I'd been on a few holidays overseas, as anyone does at around that age in my life. I thought that if I went, was starting to go overseas, explore different things, that I would try to find some inspiration in my life. And I think I picked up a camera for the first time to go on one of those holidays, and having that with me sort of sparked something that I thought, I could actually see myself doing this long term because I really enjoyed it. I could see a progression in that field, and I was really starting to enjoy the art of it. Something that I never thought I would do before. Someone coming from a very academic field, something almost the opposite of artistic. Going into that artistic field, I never thought that would be an avenue that I would enjoy, but I actually found myself really, really loving it. I'd been doing photography for probably 2 years, just as a hobby, until I decided to start it as a business early last year. It was sort of midway through last year, because I'd ended my degree. I actually decided that I would end the degree because I only had about 3 or 4 subjects to go when I'd really decided that I wanted to do photography. And so I just ended my degree because I thought it would be helpful later on. And I think that's a bit of my personality too, that I didn't want to just drop out and not have all that time be worth something in the end. I thought for me, it was better for me to end it, and at least have that chapter in my life ticked off as something that I could look back and be proud of, but have it be just something that I used to do rather than something that I just didn't end and didn't give it a full shot. That's something that could still help me later on down the line, but at the moment it can just be in the background. And so it came to that time where I'd ended the degree and thought, well, I need to go do something now. So I became, I was almost, I suppose, unemployed for a while. And it really hit me that I had to go start doing something. From that point, I really tried to just grab any job that I really could. I was applying for jobs left, right, and center, trying to find something because I knew I still had bills to pay and I didn't have any money coming in at the time. So I was trying to find jobs, but every single one I feel like I applied for, I either never heard back from or I didn't accept a resume from me. They didn't want to interview, didn't get anything. So I was a bit annoyed by that. And I think that is really where I wanted to start my own business, because I thought that if I did that, then I wouldn't have to seem to worry about that. I wouldn't have to worry about anyone else hiring me. I could just do all the work myself, which in the end seemed out to be the best way for me. And so far, I've really enjoyed it. I started my business back in April, May last year, and started just trying to do any photography work that I really could. I'd really never had any experience with commercial photography or any sort of business photography at all. I was just doing photography as a hobby on my own, just doing basic landscape photography, I guess, out and about, and had never had much experience taking photos of anyone else besides my friends and family. So for me, that was a bit of a learning curve, and I had to decide on an area of photography that I really wanted to go into. Early on, I went into food and product photography because I thought that would be something that I could do in my own time. I was a very introverted person, I guess you could say, and having that ability to work just on your own and just take photos of like food and different objects for different businesses really seemed to align with the things that I wanted to do, and not having to interact with many people along the journey. That really seemed like something that would be really good for me. But a few months into that, and I really started to get bored of the whole process. It didn't interest me as much as even the landscape photography that I was trying to do outside just as a hobby. And I really was after that interaction between other people. That really led me into doing more families photography, more couples photography, and having that real emotional connection with those people and being able to tell more of a story with the photography that I was producing. I thought that was really enjoyable. And in a few months of really trying to do that really became something that I really enjoyed. And being able to tell a story through my art was just another part in that creative process, in that journey that I'd been on over the past couple of years, because I'd been struggling to find meaning in my art, and having that storytelling aspect of it really helped, and was something that I really found, I really found interest and enjoyment in, which was great. And so I'd been trying to really push for that through the later end of the year, trying to just do any sort of photography work that I could around that space to sort of grow my skills. I think it's important early on, especially to just do as much work as you can around that area. Any photo shoot I could get working with any different types of people were always something that I was keen to grab onto, and just throw myself in there and get as much experience as I could. That's where it really left me at the end of last year, having started a business, but not having done as well as I generally would have liked to. But still, I can't disregard all the work that I did last year and how far I did come in the business. This time last year, I didn't even have my own business, so we can't just sort of erase all that and say that was all for nothing because it wasn't as successful as I thought it would be. It's always going to be hard in the beginning, as anyone said. For the first 2 years of any new business or any artist trying to start a career in something, it's going to be tough for the first 2 years. And I think for me, I found that especially especially difficult, I guess, because I am starting this from a point where I don't have anything in the background. I don't have any other job that I can fall back on to be able to support me in that way. And I've been living out of home for the past 5 years, really having expenses that any normal person would have, but trying to start a business on top of that to support myself has been a very difficult process, especially with the fact that I know these first 2 years are going to be tough. So I've been trying to put that pressure on myself, but at the same time, that's not really helping my growth. So that sort of leads me into the next point about me moving forward and my goals for 2021. And so my goals in my business are trying to really start and sort of narrow that down to where I can really get to from here. I think it's an interesting thing with goals because I don't love the idea of just having goals for the year. A lot of people talking, especially around New Year's Eve, having New Year's resolutions and goals for themselves. And I think that's great. I don't think it's necessarily the best thing to just put goals on yourself at the start of each year and to not update those and change those along the way. With that being said, I think that being able to have goals is a great thing. I think everyone should have goals and something to aim towards. I think without aiming for anything, you're never going to get anywhere, or you're never going to get in the right direction that you really want to go if you don't have a set goal that you're aiming towards. It just so happens that a year is a great amount of time to plan out a goal, in my personal opinion. I think it's that sort of in between. It's sort of that Goldilocks zone between a short-term goal and a long-term goal, and having that year something that you can assess along the way is important, and you can look back over the course of a year and say you've actually made change. I think one of the things with me and anything that I've done is it's very hard to be able to see change in a short period of time. If I just set goals month by month, it would be very difficult to look back at the end of the month and say, oh, well, I've achieved X, Y, Z in this month, so I've improved so much on last month. I think, especially in a new business where things are changing quite rapidly, but also pretty much staying the same in other areas, it's tough to see growth over a month. So over a year is a great period of time, and that's why I do find it important to set these goals for 2021. But I am hesitant to have them locked in stone, I guess, in the fact that they can't be changed and they are just goals for the year, because they can be updated along the way and can change. But it is good to have something you've written down here. So the first one for me, as I said before, was to start this podcast. I think that really comes back on a lot of different things. And it comes back to something that I said before, in that I've always been somewhat of an introverted person, and something that I want to change in that is to be a lot more open. A lot more open with myself, but with my friends, family, and anyone generally interested in my business. Starting this podcast is not something that I've really told anyone about, because I'm not sort of that type of person just to come out and share those sort of things. And I think having this medium where I'm really just having a conversation with myself is very helpful for me to be able to share those different things, be able to share things that I've been trying through the week, trying through my whole journey, and be able to create genuine connections with the people listening to this podcast. I listen to other people's podcasts, especially individual podcasts where they're just talking themselves, and I really feel like after listening to a few episodes, I feel like I've really gotten to know the person, and I feel like I could genuinely sit down and actually have a conversation with them because I know so much about them. And that's really something that I wanted to be able to have with this, in a way, is to be able to really share things with my audience. I've found it, I suppose, very tough over the years to be able to put things out there into the world. I'm not a very big sharing person, but I do think it's important for business to be very open and very transparent. It's not that I have things to hide in my business. I don't want that to be the case. So that's why I really want to start this podcast, is because I want to share the highs and lows of business, and I want to share the things that I've succeeded in, the things I've failed in, the things I've tried. But trying to do that over the course, as I said, like on YouTube, I really struggled. I've struggled on Instagram to try and do that as well. If any of you guys follow me on Instagram, I do try and put a lot of my life out there, but I've struggled to be able to get that real connection on YouTube. It's not something that I really know how to do a lot. I've been struggling a lot to write my captions on YouTube, captions on Instagram, under the photos, just because I feel like there's no real connection there. I feel like not many people actually read the captions these days anyway, scroll past them, and having so much time and effort into them was starting to probably cause me more stress than anything else. So I've been trying to limit those out of my own self-interest, I guess. Being able to have this platform where I can just speak once a week and talk to you guys openly and just candidly about things I've done. I really sat down and thought, I've been thinking about this podcast for a few weeks now, and I've been thinking about the way that I really want to produce it. I didn't really want it to be too overly scripted because I don't think that really comes across very well. As I said, there are obviously some parts, and I obviously had to write things down so I can remember things I've got to talk about, but I don't want the whole thing to be scripted, because I think if it is, it sort of gets into a loop of just not being personal at all, and something that I wouldn't want to listen to myself. I know I have done that on YouTube before. I've scripted the whole video, and as I'm listening back, you just think, who is that person even talking there? Because I just don't even know half the things that I've just had to say. It just doesn't really communicate the best way possible. And so being able to having this personal touch of just sitting down and recording it, I think it's important for not only my audience, but also for my communication skills in my own business as well. Because something I think most of us have struggled with over this past year, especially in isolation in a lot of different stages, is not having those situations to be able to communicate with people in. I think I've struggled with that a lot, to be able to keep up communication skills and my own social skills, because I can't communicate with people. I know this is a different situation with me just being in a room, having conversation basically just with myself, and I don't ever think that that's going to make me a great communicator with people outside this room. But I do think that does go somewhat of the way into helping that situation. Any communication is good communication, I guess you could say. So in that way, this, I think, will help me then transform into other things outside, as well as having people involved in things I'm doing helps me then have conversations outside of here, to talk to people interested in my work, other people who have been following my work. And well, then I feel like we're not starting from scratch when people have already known something about the business. I think that's a good place to start from. A few of my other goals in business for this year is definitely to be in, I'd really love to be in a financial position where I can just support myself completely off my business income at the end of the year. As I said, I'm probably not there at the moment, but I would love to be by the end of this year. And there's a few things that I would really love to do to work towards that. And I think one of the big things is to really specialize myself in my career. As I said, through the last year, I found it important to work in heaps of different areas that interested me. I think that is necessary in the first 6 to 12 months of any business, is to work out where you would really love to go. I think for me, I've found that I love to work with people. So having opportunities to work with more people in photographing them is really something that I want to do moving forward. And I think even more to that, I think I love the whole storytelling aspect. So I love the journey of that storytelling and being able to create something for someone to look back on at a stage in their life, as I'm doing with this podcast being something that I'm going to look back on. I love to create art for other people that they can then look back on later in their life and see some sort of journey happening there. I've been talking here for like 35 minutes and my voice is already starting to go. I don't think I've stayed in a conversation this long for forever. But yeah, as I said, I'd love to move forward in that. And one of the specializations that I'd really love to be involved more in this year, or really start to be involved in, I guess, is wedding photography, because I really love the craft, and I see so many wedding photographers out there producing just such amazing work, and such amazing work in the aspect of the storytelling, I think, more so than the art really standing out to me. I think gives that ability to really tell a story through a portfolio of work. And I think that's just so important, and something that really inspires me to move forward. I think I'm going to make a whole episode on this and why I would like to be a wedding photographer and aspects that I really would like to move towards and how I plan to get to that stage. But as I said, this is something that I really would love to do for the rest of the year. And so that is a few things that I'm going to be trying to push towards into specializing myself into that avenue in my business. And I know there's a lot I need to do now. I know that I'm not just going to instantly become a wedding photographer overnight, but I definitely want to get myself heading in that direction. I do have some other personal goals for this year. Anyone that knows me would know I've been running a lot recently. You've probably been seeing it all over my Instagram stories. That's because I'm trying to push to be able to run a half marathon this year. And to not only run a half marathon, I'd like to run it in under an hour and a half. If you have been following me for a while, you would know that I actually have run a few half marathons before, but I haven't run one in a few years. And I'd really love to get back there this year, but that's something that's a bit further down the track, hopefully for halfway towards the end of the year. So that's something that I'm pushing towards. One of my other goals is to read 12 books this year. It was actually a good goal of mine last year that I never got around to actually doing. I only read 8 or 9 last year, I think. I feel like a lot of things came up last year and I sort of had to give up a lot of my own personal time to sort of dedicate towards my business more so I didn't get that sort of free time, and I didn't prioritize my time enough. That's also definitely something that I am going to make an episode on, about prioritizing my time and the things that I do use my time on. So hopefully I can sort of get more into a routine to be able to read those 12 books this year. I don't think that's an overly ambitious target. I think it just requires me to have to read probably every day. I'm not a very fast reader. I don't like to read for long periods of time either, but that is definitely something that I can do. So yeah, that's really a few of my goals that I've got for this year. I'm glad to say that I've now ticked off the start of one of my goals, having actually started this podcast. I didn't actually think that it would ever actually get to this stage where I'm starting this podcast. But if you are listening, I do appreciate you being here and appreciate you listening to this podcast. It has been a very interesting thing for me. I think I've had to do a fair bit of research to understand how to actually produce a podcast, how to record, how to upload a podcast. If you are hearing this, I've obviously uploaded it, so it's all gone smoothly. These podcasts hopefully are going to continue to come out on Fridays. That's the aim for me. I think I've sort of settled on Fridays because I like Fridays. I don't know about you guys, but I like to listen to them over the weekend. Normally I don't have a great deal on. I like to listen to them when I'm either in the car or as I'm exercising. So I think that is probably when I'm going to try and release them on Fridays, because I love to listen to podcasts over the weekend, and I think on a Friday is a good time to really get them out there. So hopefully you will hear this one on a Friday, and the next one will come next week. I'm not too sure what next week's episode will be, but I think that's going to be the theme of this podcast. It's just going to be the things that have happened through my week and things that I've been thinking about, things that I've been interested in, things that I've been enjoying, things that have been happening in the business, and everything that I've learned through the week. It's going to be important for me to share those things. So thank you guys again for listening, and I hope to speak to you again next week. Have a good one. Bye.